In this video, we'll quickly run through the steps of taking an exam on Blackboard. Now, this is obviously an important component of a hybrid class, so being able to complete an exam online is really an essential part of your grade. I've outlined a couple of steps here in terms of taking tests on Blackboard. The number one step being give yourself enough prep time before the exam. You don't want to wait until the very last minute to start studying for the exam. So, in the days leading up to when you just sit down and actually take it online, make sure that you're, giving yourself enough time to study. Look through the lecture notes, read the chapters in the book, review through the study guide or the review questions at the end of the PowerPoint lectures. Use all of the materials that have been made available to you to prepare before the exam. The exam is structured in such a way that you have one shot to take it, so you don't want to head into this still sort of uncertain of what material we've covered over this particular unit. When it comes time to take the test, make sure you find a good 90-minute block of interrupted time to take the exam. You will have a full 90 minutes to complete the exam, but it usually only takes students about 45 minutes or an hour. But make sure that everything else is cleared out of the way. If you have family obligations, if you have work obligations, try to find a separate time when you're not going to be interrupted with other things that you have to do, because once you start the exam, you have to finish it. Next, treat the test as if it were happening in a classroom. So this means that standard test-taking procedures apply. This is not an open book or open note exam, so no textbooks, no notes, no lecture notes, and no internet. Now, obviously, since you're taking the test on your own time at your own computer, this isn't something that I'm going to be able to monitor or check up on. But it is pretty obvious when students try to use these types of resources on the exam. I pick it up pretty quickly, so just avoid it altogether. And we'll talk a little bit more about this no internet rule in just a minute. Next, please work independently and not with other classmates. This is not meant to be an exam of how well a group of students compile information, but rather how well you have remembered and synthesized all of the information that we've covered, and then how well you independently write it on an exam. So while you're welcome to study with other students and study with friends, please don't sit down with someone else in the class to take the exam side by side. Also, once you've taken the exam, please do not share the test questions with students who haven't taken it yet. I know that it seems like a very friendly thing to do, to take the exam and then tell your friend, this is the question that's asked on the exam and here's what you need to look out for. But it's actually doing you a disservice if you help someone else out in this manner, because that creates a bigger spread in the grade. So if I see that everyone does poorly on the exam or everyone does poorly on a certain question of the exam, then that makes me reconsider my grading of that particular question. It makes me reconsider how effectively I've taught something in class. But if I see that some people are doing well and other people are doing poorly, then the only assumption that I can have is that, some people are putting in more time to study and others aren't. So while I know it seems like a very nice thing to do, to tell other people what is on the test, it really only ends up hurting you. Finally, when you are taking the test, make sure that all of your answers are saved before submitting. And I'll show you how to do this in just a moment. But just make sure as you're going through the exam that all of your work is getting appropriately saved, because again, you only have one shot to complete the exam, and if things aren't saved, then it becomes a big headache. So let's turn now to the exam itself. Now, to show you how this works, I want to show you on this practice test here, which is in the folder called How to Use Blackboard in the Course Content folder. So if you click on this link, this is exactly what you'll do when you go to take a test. Click on that exam link, and it will take you to the opening page for the exam. This gives you all of the instructions for the exam. It tells you how long you have to take the test. So this test has a time limit of 1 hour and 30 minutes. You will be notified when that 90 minutes expires, and the way this is set up, you can continue or you can go ahead and submit at that time. So while I don't think it will take you anywhere near 90 minutes to complete the exam, if you have gotten to that 90-minute point, you just still need 1 or 2 minutes, you'll be fine. You can go ahead and continue with the exam. This exam is structured in a way that it has to be completed in one sitting. That means that you cannot start the exam and then save it and come back to it later. You also can't open the exam to see the questions and then close it down, come back, and fill in your answers once you've studied for those questions. So once you open it, you have to finish it. Then it lists the due date for the exam. In all of the tests that you will take, they'll be due at midnight. So whether you take your exams on Sundays or on Tuesdays, this will be the due date. Now, when you're ready to take the exam, you just click Begin. If at this point you want to back out, you can just click Cancel, and there's no harm, no foul right there, because at this point on this page, Blackboard has not yet registered you as starting the exam. But once you are ready, just go ahead and click Begin. And this now takes you into the test page itself. Now my setup looks a little bit different than yours because I have the professor's view, but it's basically what you're going to end up seeing when you get into the test. So you'll have your questions all on one page. Right here they all are. You do not need to advance through pages to get to the next questions of the exam. So when you click this button, Save and Submit, it should only be when you're absolutely done with the entire exam. Okay, do not click this until you have answered every question. So let's go ahead and answer some of these. Question 1, what class is this? Well, I know this one. This class is anthropology. So when you are satisfied with your answer, you just come over here and click the button that says Save Answer. And once it is saved, it'll give you a nice little green check mark, and it will say Saved. You can also see that it tells you for each question how many points that question is worth. All right, let's continue a little bit further down. Question 2, what is the professor's name? I also know this one. It is Sheila Nightingale. And if we wait long enough, or even hover over this answer, it should automatically save. So in that case, I didn't have to click it. It did automatically save. And that's something that tends to happen with the multiple choice questions. But just to be sure, it never hurts to just save it again. If you want to change your answer at any point, you can simply click your new answer and resave it. But I'm going to go ahead and come back here, change it back to the correct answer, save it one more time. All right, question 3, what is this a picture of? A scary clown, a fire truck, a sad kitten, or a balloon? This is a sad kitten. All right, you can see the questions on this practice test are a little bit hard, but we're making our way through. Okay, now these last 2 questions on the practice exam, these are both short answer questions, and the exams that you'll be taking on Blackboard will be comprised of multiple choice and also short answer and a few fill in the blanks. So to complete this answer, all you do is type into this text box here. So the question is, what is symbolic capital and how does it relate to linguistic diversity? So maybe I'll write symbolic capital refers to the prestige, there we go, between different dialects. All right, and you can see I've misspelled something here, so let's go ahead and spell that correctly. All right, let's say that this is my answer to the question. Now I'll go ahead and tell you right now, this is not a complete enough answer for a question like this, but I just want to put an answer in here to show you how it works. So it's automatically saved my answer, but I can also go ahead and click there to make sure it's saving. Move on to my next question. Here is my second answer. Click Save. So once I'm done with the exam completely, one thing I can do is click Save All Answers, and that again just makes sure all answers are saved. Great. Makes sure that I have everything saved that I've answered thus far. But when I'm ready to submit the exam, so it's completely out of my hands at this point, then I click Save and Submit. Before I do that though, I want to show you a couple of things. First of all, if you were to try to go backwards in the exam, a little dialog will pop up that will say this test has not been submitted. So if you leave this page, then all of the saved answers that you so far have will automatically submit. And that will be your one attempt for the exam. So please do not move backwards in this exam because it will automatically submit the answers that you have put in. Okay, so we're just going to stay on this page for now. I also want to talk a little bit more about using the internet because as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I don't want you to use books or notes or lecture notes or the internet to answer questions for this exam. I've seen it happen a number of times, and typically I think the reason why some students use the internet to answer questions is because perhaps they haven't spent quite enough time preparing for the exam, and then when they see a question on the exam that feels a little bit unfamiliar, or they want to make sure that they get the absolutely best answer, the easiest thing to do, it would seem, would be to turn to Google. We get so much information every day from Google that we automatically just turn to the internet to solve any questions that we have about what's going on in our lives. So I understand the temptation to use the internet to answer questions on the exam, but please, please, please do not do it. Let's just look at what happens when students use the internet. All right, so let's say that for question number 4, I didn't quite prepare enough, and this term symbolic capital is slipping me up, so I'm not quite sure what symbolic capital is. Here's what tends to happen. People come into Google and they type symbolic capital. All right, symbolic capital. So let's see what Google has to say. And here we go. All right, so Google is giving me a Wikipedia result for symbolic capital in sociology and anthropology. Hey, anthropology, that's what we're working on, so that sounds good. Symbolic capital can be referred to as the resources available to an individual on the basis of honor, prestige, or recognition, and serves as a value that holds... All right, well, that sounds like a pretty good answer. So, what if I were to just copy like that and go into my exam and then just paste? Well, I have now put an answer into this text box, and I have saved it. And this is where things tend to get a little bit hairy. Because first of all, as a professor, when I'm grading assignments like this, or when I'm grading exams online, a couple of things stand out to me. First of all, this is a very specific answer, but it has nothing to do with this question of linguistic diversity. Okay, so when you're copying things from the internet, while you may get a technically correct definition, it may not necessarily have anything to do with what you're being asked on the exam. So it's an automatic red flag that this answer does not match this question. Furthermore, it's really easy for me, as I'm grading these exams, to just select your answer, copy that, and take it right back into Google and search for it. And let's see what Google has to say. Yes, and here we are. Here is this exact same definition. So a good, sort of rule of thumb, if you find something on the internet, it's very easy for me to find it again. Okay, so anytime anything is cut and pasted from the internet, I can find it within 5 seconds. And if I see answers that have been copied from the internet, it's an automatic 0. So I understand the temptation to do this, but please, please do not, because it will always result in a 0. I've never seen it go well for a student trying to pull answers from the internet, because the internet is not in our anthropology class. So if you spend time preparing for the exam, that's the best way to avoid this particular problem. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that because we don't want any record of that going forward. Do your best to answer these questions based on everything that we've talked about in class. And when you're ready, then all you do is go down and click Save and Submit. Okay? And another little text box pops up, Test Submission Confirmation. Click OK to submit assignment. So when you're ready to submit, click OK. And that will take you to your test confirmation page. So this tells you exactly how long you spent on the exam. It also tells you that you can click OK to review results. And in some cases, you might be able to see the multiple choice questions that you got correct. But you'll also see that for those short answer questions, those will say need grading until I have a chance to go through and grade everyone's exams. And once you've gotten to this page, you are completely done, and you can go ahead and press OK, and it will take you back to the page that you started on. Now, if you have any problems taking an exam, whether it's, something happens to your internet, where, your signal's cut out, your Wi-Fi is down, whatever, please get in touch with me as soon as possible. Or sometimes Blackboard likes to automatically submit exams, a little fluke in the programming there, but please just shoot me an email as soon as you can, and I can help you get back right on the right page. One last little tip. Make sure that you're able to use a computer for this exam. There's a lot you can do on Blackboard just through your smartphone, but for taking the exams, a computer is really necessary. And that's because of how the text box works and how the multiple choice questions work. It's just a lot easier to do on an actual computer. So just to review, make sure you give yourself enough prep time. This is the #1 hint for taking a test on Blackboard. Get a 90-minute block of uninterrupted time for the exam. Act as if there's an exam happening in the classroom, so it's not open book, it's not open note, it is certainly not open internet. Work independently. You're welcome to study with classmates, but complete the exam on your own, and then make sure all of your answers are saved before submitting. That's it, and so good luck!